Hi friends, I hope you're doing well. This week in the Master Study series, I'll be looking at tonalist master John Francis Murphy's Fall Landscape with Stream. I really like how all the colors are crushed together while the trees stand out in contrast. Just to give a refresher on what tonalism is, it's an artistic movement from the late 19th, early 20th century and describes a style of painting where the color range is limited, allowing the middle hues or tones to tell the story. Don't forget to visit my Teespring store. It helps support this channel, so I hope that you'll check it out. I'll put a link in the description. But if you don't need more stuff, but still want to contribute, use this QR code here, and I'll put other options in the description. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and click that notification bell so that you'll be alerted to new videos. More than anything, share this video with someone who you think might learn from these fundamentals. I'm Kendall Stump, and welcome to the Stump Project. So first, this was a painting. I think you can probably tell from some of the values on there. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. So I sanded it down, and actually I'll put the painting up on the screen here so you can see what it originally looked like. I don't think it was a horrible painting. I just didn't care for it. It didn't spark joy. So I sanded it down and I put a new coat of primer on it, and the primer is just titanium white. You don't want to put acrylics or anything like that on top of an oil paint, especially if it's like less than a year old, because the oil paint is still curing. And if you seal it with an acrylic like that, then it's never going to seal. It's never going to cure. So it's same as if you put varnish on a painting, not the spot varnish, but the actual varnish, the final varnish. You put that on a painting, you'll seal it, and you'll prevent the oxidation from happening with the oil paint, and it will never cure. So I put some titanium white on here and a couple coats to kind of cover up the majority of what was there, and we're going to repurpose this board in what I hope is a successful study. This is Fall Landscape with Stream, like I said in my opener, by John Francis Murphy, tonalist oil painter, landscape painter, from he was born in 1853, I think, all the way through 1921. So this painting here I thought was unique. I thought it really caught my eye. I liked how it got away from the regular earth. Well, I want to say earth tones. These are all going to be earth tones, but it got away from like the blues and the greens, and this is more warm browns and such. So okay, this is burnt sienna. I'm just toning my canvas right now. So we'll just come in here and I'm going to start wiping it off, especially the areas that are going to be the lightest, and then we'll proceed to do our sketch. Actually, I'm going to wipe this all kind of down. I'll leave it. Trying to smooth out some of these brush strokes, and then I'll come over it again with to take off more. Again, we're just toning the canvas. When you tone a canvas, this paint, you're looking to stain it. You're just looking for an undercolor. So I'm using just a clean spot on my towel, and you see you take more away rather than just spreading the stuff out. So I'm just trying to get a better idea. These are going to be the high points in the painting. The higher values, which is different from a tonal value. Tonal value, well, I'm sorry, I take that back. Tonal value and value is pretty much the same thing. Tone in a painting is essentially the color hue. You're looking at going from red to green to blue to purple, what have you. It's the color. You're not shifting in saturation intensity. You're not shifting in brightness up and down the scale. It's strictly the color, the hue. So when someone talks about tone, they're talking about the hue. Talking about tonal value, we're talking about the scale from the brightness or the darkness of that color. So John Francis Murphy, it looks like he stuck to the rule of thirds. His canvas is divided into thirds. So like the horizon line is going to be about here. Maybe the other third. And then his tree clump is about on the third here. So you see that. So we're going to sketch this out accordingly, just to kind of give us an idea. So here's the horizon line. Let's bring that right across here to give us a visual aid. He's got some bushes and shrubbery that come up here. I'm just using some smaller brushes today. This is a flat. It's a number 5 Rosemary and Company from the Eclipse collection. It's good to break when you're painting. Things can, especially when you're doing a study, things can feel intimidating or overwhelming. Break these things down into shape. So for example, when we're looking at, it looks like there's so much detail going on, but if you just break it down, like, okay, this is the bush, the vegetation area in the background, we'll just block that in, and we know that this intention isn't to copy this painting exactly. The intention of this is to just kind of discover maybe how it was put together in the first place. He has some clouds in the sky about here. Okay, we know that he had some land, a little bit of land that came out through here. We'll darken that up a little bit. Now this burnt sienna that I'm using is going to get into the paint that I'm going to put on here, so it's going to give it that, we're going to go for that homogeneous look. So the color temperature of the painting should remain constant. Something like that. And then of course he had trees that come through here, and we'll put those trees in by wiping away some of this stuff, but we'll just kind of block them in right now just to give us the idea, visual placeholders of some of the stuff that's going on. And that is pretty much the idea of his painting, but we're not done. Now we're going to get into the fun stuff. I'm going to start applying some color. So we're going to start with some cerulean blue and titanium white. I'm using I just wiped off my brush, so I've still got some burnt sienna residue in it, but it was going to pick up that anyway. And if you look closely at John Francis Murphy's style, it almost felt like it was wanted to be impressionist in nature. Some of his strokes, especially up here in the sky, it could have been simply how he built the painting. I like to work alla prima, or all in one sitting. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he put it together in sittings, and that's why it has kind of an overlapping look. And what I mean by that is when you look at some of his, especially the sky, it almost looks splotchy with the pinky burnt sienna look to it, almost like he came in after the blue was dry and added some additional color. And then it goes down into that pinky look right there. So we're essentially just going to end up adding just some titanium white and let that mix with the burnt sienna that we have on the canvas already. That paint right over top of your sketch. That sketch is just there to kind of give you a guide, help you plan out how you want things or how things are going to look. I tend to add a little bit more blue we'll keep the corners a little bit darker. I tried to do that with the entire outside edge of the painting, all around the edges here. I try to keep a bit darker. The reason for that is it helps intensify everything that's going to go on inside that painting. It draws the eye in to what I hope is the more important areas. So as I'm putting the sky together, something else I'm doing is I'm trying to make a transition lighter as I come in. I'm not washing my brush, I'm just wiping it off on a paper towel. One thing I'm noticing, now this is the first time that I have, when I sanded down a painting to reuse the board and put a new primer, this is the first time I've actually put a coat of titanium white on my canvas. Normally I would just try to reuse the painting that was there in some fashion and make the new painting just part of it. So this is the first time I'm kind of just reworking and just trying to make a whole new thing. What I'm finding is the titanium white that I have on there is creating a very slick environment for my paint. Maybe you like that, maybe you don't, but it's just something to take into consideration. It's not something that I was expecting. So I'm curious. The feel of it is a little bit different. I think I could get to like it, but just initially it's different. I don't like it, I don't dislike it, it's just different. Bring the sky down, and then we'll do a little bit of blending with our 1-inch natural bristle brush. And as you see how I'm holding my brush here, this is just loose, just very, very loose. Like we're just blocking in color, and then we'll build on top of that as we go along. And this is the natural bristle brush. This is the 1-inch brush. I really like this brush. It's very, very pliable. So we're just lightly just going to fluff this, just really, really, really lightly. And we're just trying to take out, I'm just trying to take out the brush strokes. That's all I'm doing. Let the paint blend a little bit, let the transition be a little bit more fluid. Wipe off your brush when you're done with that. I'm going to use some alizarin crimson, just a smidge of the titanium white. His clouds there seem to be a little bit more organic, a little bit more fluffy. So I'm going to use bigger. This is one of those artist loft brushes. It's really, really inexpensive, but it's a natural bristle brush and it works really well for creating this texture. And what I want to do is I just want to dab some of this color right along the edge, because tonalism was happening about the same time as Impressionist painting in Europe, and tonalism is primarily an American thing. It's not to say that it wasn't taken across other continents or it wasn't studied in other continents. I'm not saying that at all, but I am saying that it's primarily looked at as an American style of painting. I added a little bit of cerulean blue to this. So at the same time as tonalism was going on, Impressionism was also going on. So you can see, and as you study different paintings, influences of the different eras, and this dabbing of color really puts you to mind of the Impressionists. And you can see how much smoother my canvas is than normal. There's not a whole lot of tooth to it. As I make these brush strokes, you can see how the white just comes right through. And in other, like when I'm doing my spontaneous paintings, that's probably the look that I want to go for. This isn't obviously that. We're going to dip into that cerulean blue. We're going to make a bit more of a purple, gray purple, because we really want the brightness of the sky to come through. So in order to show brightness, we have to show the darkness. So even if that means sometimes we have to over accentuate. I'm not trying to put this on as a flat color. Let the different hues come through when we we'll blend this a little bit and trying to get out some of those brush strokes. It's just going to make for a more natural feeling. I'm using more the side of my brush as I put this on. I'm not trying to use the tip and move paint. If you do that, you're going to move the paint like that instead of laying it on. Okay, take some of the extra paint off. I want to go a little bit more to the blue hue now in the sky, so we'll just take some more of this Australian blue and just a little bit. We don't want to abandon that purple color altogether. Again, we want these colors to be homogeneous, but I'm shifting it a little bit more to the blue and raising the value on it a little, because I know that it's going to mix with the paint that's already on the canvas. And I'm going to hit these underside of the clouds here. A lot of times you'll find that tonalist paintings are dealing with sunrises or sunsets. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. This would be like a bounced light from a sunrise or a sunset. John Francis Murphy was also a very texture-oriented painter. You can see in his work and how there's not a whole lot of, well, there's blending, but I mean, it's just color that's laid down on top of color primarily. Here we'll lighten this up even a little bit more. Super light, super light. I'm not trying to blend out any of the color variations that we've got. What I am trying to do is soften it and to smooth those color transitions just a little bit. I'm just using the side of my brush and just lightly, just ever so lightly, bringing this together. And then at this point, after you get things blended, you can come back in and see some things will make themselves apparent. It's like you need to make certain things darker, or maybe things blended out that you didn't intend to blend out, or just going to take care of those things at this time. But for the most part, I think we are in really good shape. I like how this is. This area right here is a little bit brighter, and we're going to start making the transition into the browns. So I'm going to add a little bit a yellow ochre to go along with that sienna. So I'm going to take some white, some titanium white, and some yellow ochre. And you see how that value shift just a little bit. And that's all we need. And we'll just let that blend down into the burnt sienna, that white that we have down there. Just let that darken up just a little bit. This is what I was talking about, what John Francis Murphy's, the multiness of the sky. I'm not sure if he did it at this point just to maybe accentuate a gradient, so he went in just like this to kind of give that gradient hue, or if he waited until it was dry and came over it with a type of a glazing technique. I mean, doing this will also help keep your colors homogeneous, because you'll be working with the same color palette all throughout your painting, which is also very important. Color temperature, we haven't necessarily discussed color temperature too much. It matters throughout your painting. It can throw off the look and feel and mood of the painting if your color temperatures vary. What I mean by color temperature is you have cool colors and you have warm colors. So by letting those things compete with each other and for the overall mood of the painting, it's going to contrast in the interpreter's mind, and it's not going to tell the story that you necessarily want to tell. Is this a cool morning? Is this a warm morning? And like, where are all these warm pieces coming from? And it's not going to make sense. And maybe you don't know. Maybe the viewer doesn't know just by looking at it, or maybe they don't know why they feel a certain way that they feel. But that's going to be why, because your color temperatures were off, so it was difficult to tell the story. So they had a problem translating it, and it didn't speak to them. So these things all come together and they all matter. So now let's get into a little bit more of the landscape and the shrubbery and the bushes all through there. I'm going to switch brushes. I'm going to go back to my natural bristle brush. I'm also going to use some raw umber along with my along with my burnt sienna. So I'm going to keep that warm color of the red of the burnt sienna, and I'm going to start darkening that up. So again, I'm not really washing my brush, so I still have some alizarin crimson and burnt sienna on there. I'm going to go into my raw umber and some burnt sienna. Burnt sienna on one side of my brush, raw umber on the other side of my brush. I'm looking for texture at this point. So I'm just dabbing, similar to what Bill Alexander or Bob Ross would have done in order to put some trees and foliage in. I'm pushing in and letting the bristles curve upwards. You can see this. Pushing in and pushing up. Pushing in and pushing up. And you can see how this stuff you get those little bits of detail right off of the top. Now I'm starting darker on purpose because we need something that we're going to show those the highlights off of. So we'll come in here first and we'll put this stuff in. Start painting over those clouds just a little bit. We'll lighten this stuff up here as we start adding the highlights. But like I said, we just need a good foundation in order for those highlights to show. The more you tap, the more you blend. So I'm going to just tap some of that in the background there just to kind of let it blend in with the background. It's going to help portray distance, depth that way. Okay, now this I want, how I'm going to put the trees in, you'll see that in a moment. I need some extra paint here, and I need it dark. Okay, we're getting close to the water, which is this area here. So we have to make a decision. Do I want to continue going on with the land, or do I want to start working on some of the water right here? I kind of think I want to start in with some of the water. So I want to take a break, put pause on that just for a moment, which is good. It's good to take a break, move around from place to place on your painting. It gives you a chance to just get fresh eyes when you come back to it. So what I want for this water, obviously we're going to be showing reflections. We're showing reflections of the sky, and showing reflections of the clouds. So I went into a little bit of everything, some of that alizarin crimson and some of the cerulean blue, with a little bit of the burnt sienna on my brush, some titanium white to get kind of a really gray purpley color. And we're going to come in and just where we think this water is going to be, kind of block this in. And if you have been with me for any length of time, you know how I do water. I do water much like I do water exactly like Bob Ross does. As far as reflections, anyway, I do have some techniques that I do other bits of water, but for reflections and water lines, I enjoy his reflections, Bob Ross's reflections, a lot. It works for me. I really like it. Wipe off my brush. Then I'm going to go into some of this darker color now because of the reflection. We're going to demonstrate that. I'm not trying to be too precise or anything. I'm just putting in what makes sense to me, especially what trying to keep in line with the painting that we're trying to copy. Or not copy. We're not trying to copy. We're trying to study it. Apologies. So the reason why I like to put in the water first before we get too far into the land is because that land, we can take the water, the land right on top of the water, and it's going to help create those water lines that's going to work for us. Okay, I think that's blocked in pretty well. This is going to be a challenge because I'm in a box. I'm on a box, so that's how far down my brush can go. That's it. So it's going to be a challenge. I'm going to take my soft bristle brush and I'm going to come right up to where that water line would be, the shoreline. I'm going to gently pull it straight down. And these on the bottom, I'm going to pull up. There, wipe off my brush a little bit, and then I'm going to go side to side. And blend these in a little bit more, just trying to get the effect that I want. But my ending stroke, I want to be side to side. Because inevitably you will leave those streak lines in there, and you want those, your final strokes to be side to side. You don't want it to be vertical. It's just going to give a weird look, to your painting. So now we've tried to put in a highlight or a light source here, which we may want to lighten that up a little bit right up in here. Lighten it up. You can feel that it's kind of like right behind the cloud. That's why all that red is there. And then the highlight here. So, but around that red, I think we're going to need to lighten that up just a little bit before we get too far along. White and yellow ochre. We use a hint of the alizarin crimson, burnt sienna. You see, this gives it just a little bit of a glow. You can add some of that red to the water if you wanted to, like right in there, just a little bit. Okay, now back to the land. Yellow ochre, a little bit of burnt sienna, raw umber, yellow ochre, and titanium white. This is just a little bit smaller version of the other brush that I had. And I'm just dabbing it on. Starting to put some of the lay of the land in. You drag your brush, you're going to remove some paint. And if you pull down on your brush like this, using the flat of your brush, you apply paint. So if you want to lighten some areas up, you just go side to side. Right now I'm just applying, I'm blocking in some color where I think that color will ultimately be the way John Francis Murphy applied, did his landscapes, or his ground, his dirt and stuff was really masterful. It was kind of blended up in with this dark that we have. Just have a little bit of a transition. And then some of this over here along this area, there's just this, probably the only place you're going to find it in this painting is a little bit of green. So I'm just going to use some of the sap green. I'm going to mix it in with some, I'm going to gray it down just a little bit. So I'm going to mix it in with some of the burnt sienna, because the red and the burnt sienna is going to offset the green. And it's going to help dilute it a little bit. Or not dilute it, it's going to help gray it out a little bit, because I don't want it to be so green, so saturated. I just want a hint of it. Just scrubbing in some color. It's just it feels very splotchy on how he has it put in here. So right now I'm just blocking in some idea of what that may be, and then we'll refine that here in a little bit. We're putting in essentially a background color of the foreground, if that makes sense. A little bit more right down here, because the tree's going to go uphill. So remember, you swipe and you remove, and you use the side of your brush, and you will put back. So as you're swiping, you're removing paint, so you're revealing the white canvas underneath. So we're kind of showing the lay of the land. Then as we cover some of that up, you can see that it still kind of shows. Kind of gives the impression or the hint that there's something there. So what do we do about those trees? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a paper towel and I'm going to twist this into a nice sturdy taper. And then I'm going to use this to push against the canvas. So remember, the trees are about on the third line, and then we're going to go all the way up. Okay, so there's that one. There's that one. And there's going to be leaves at the top of here, so I mean that the top should get taken care of. We want this one here to be relatively clean, the front one. You can use a cotton swab for this if you prefer. You can also use a brush, dip in odorless paint thinner, and then wipe off the residue. It'll help thin the paint and allow you to do that. And when you're going up into the light areas, it's usually best if you start at the bottom and work your way up, because you'll drag that paint up there with it and allow that value to help tell that story. Use your textured brush and just go around, treat the tree as a round surface. Now you have to remember your horizon line. Your horizon line, when you look at rounded surfaces, anything below the horizon line is going to curve down. Anything above the horizon line is going to curve up. So you don't have to make this extremely exaggerated, but just keep that in mind, that as you get up here, these things should start to have like an upward tick to them. Now we're going to try a little bit of dry brushing. I dipped my brush in my natural bristle brush in the paint, and I wiped it off. And now we're just going to kind of just poke in using the residue of the paint that's on our brush in the paint that we are going to transplant. We want a little bit darker up here so that the highlights that we do put on will show. You don't want to cover up all of the white that you've got shown through here. I'm turning my brush as I do this. I don't want things to be patterned. I want them to just look organic. All right, so then some of the highlights are going to be yellow ochre, and we'll put a little bit of, I have permanent yellow light, just a little bit. I want to overpower it with those kind of highlights. And then we'll use, of course, titanium white. And if we wanted some even darker spots, we can add a little bit of ultramarine blue to the raw umber, and it makes a really nice black. So blocking in these colors and then dabbing them to make them blend really help sell the tonalist idea of color, hue, and value. Orange into the mix, a little bit of the burnt sienna. Actually, I'm going to use, bring in a little bit of cadmium red, because I do want some orange. Cadmium red light, permanent yellow light, some titanium white. And we'll just let that play with the oranginess of the sky. You start to get some of that multicolor. And then play with it and blend out what you need to. Then we can take a little bit of that and bring it into some titanium white. We can get a really bright, well, we can add some yellow ochre too. Tone it down just a little bit. He's got the brightest part right up in here. highlights. And super lightly, just using the texture brush to just pull over what would look like some bark. I'm not going for shadow. This is more about the texture or the detail of the tree itself. Okay, now we can go on into the foreground a little bit. And this stuff, I'm pretty happy with how this looks over here. This stuff here, I'm pretty happy with this. This right here, I want to blend this just a little bit. I want it to be a background color or a back plate for the stuff I'm going to put on top of it. So I just want to blend it just a little. I'm start putting some of those highlights. This is just titanium white and burnt sienna. We can add a little bit of that orange that we made earlier if we want to make it add a little bit more warmth to it. And just using that, just putting it up there just to hint at. And if it's too bright, we can go over it with we can just add a little bit of the raw umber, kind of tone that down a little bit. Just let it blend in, but you're blending in highlights at this point. We can put more dark on top of that. That's not that big a deal. Using this kind of a motion here, with this warm color, adding some texture, breaking up the dark color. Then we can bring some of those trees back that we painted over by taking your brush and just swiping through it. Just wipe off your brush. You just take a paper towel and just wad it up. You remove some of the paint and you start to add some really nice texture to this foliage area. You can only do a couple blots and then you're just transplanting paint, unless that's what you want. When that's really great for spreading paint out amongst other areas, trying to get maybe additional detail. So like you can take that and you put that up here or over here. All right, we're putting the final touches on this piece, I think. We're going to do some highlights on the ground. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow ochre to the orange that we had done, a little bit of titanium white, a little bit of raw umber. See if this is the value that I want. Close, a little bit lighter, a little more titanium white. Let's do some ground highlights here. Help define some of these trees, because we're going to go behind them. So you can see how it makes some of these things stand out a little bit more. Break up some of those dark color patches. A little bit of ultramarine blue. Just a little bit. We're not going to use much. Raw umber. I want some black. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself, I think. What I want to do is I want to pull down some of that and some of this. And now I'm putting some water lines. So right back here. Just scratch in something really small there. Okay, I got a little bit smaller brush here. So just a little bit black there. A little bit of black here. Wipe off the brush. Go right straight titanium white. I'm taking, this is a rigger brush, so it's a really skinny, long bristled brush. Clean my paint and then just ever so lightly, just letting it find its way through. You don't have to do this all over the place. Just wherever you want to add just a little bit more. Taking some of this black and adding it to wherever we may need some extra shadow. And if you feel like you want to put some your own touches into this, go ahead. I mean, explore it. I mean, this is it's a master study, but I mean, like I said, the point of it is to kind of explore and see how these kinds of things are built for your knowledge. So once you have that knowledge and you're able to start exploring, do so. Just putting in some reflections. And if we need to pull those down, go side to side. I think we are in. I think we're in good shape. There we go. Now I may continue to piddle with this as per usual, but I hope you guys enjoyed this journey, and I hope to see you again next time. I started with a painting I didn't like, so I sanded it down, gave it a new primer, then I was finally able to put something together that I enjoy. I really like doing these master studies, and if you want to see something specific, or perhaps a painting that you want me to do a study on, or if you have a question, please let me know. Keep studying, keep practicing, and go on and create something awesome. You can find inspiration anywhere. Don't be afraid to look. And I'll see you next time.